What's going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the With Her Two Hands podcast, where each week we celebrate the women who build, fix, and make things with her own two hands. I am your host, Bogey. I am a master auto mechanic by trade, but a huge supporter of women in all of the trades. And this podcast has been going on for about 3 years now. Just celebrating these women. We make up a very small percentage of trades folks, the actual hands-on trades folks, less than 2% across most of the trades. And most of the women who are out there doing the grind every day, kicking butt in these industries, very rarely get their stories shared or their voices heard or a light shown on them. And so that's what this series is all about. If you are new here, welcome. If you've been coming back week after week, thank you so much for coming and sharing part of your evening with us and for helping us celebrate these incredible women. It's great to see so many familiar names each week. So thank you guys for being here. Got a big thank you to our partner on this episode. This episode is brought to you by Drive Time. And they have been a partner for a couple of years now on this podcast, really showing their support for women in the trades. And they do a ton within their organization as well, really doing a lot to create opportunities for younger folks, folks who are green and don't have a lot of experience to kind of come in and get their training and get their experience and find their niche within the automotive industry. If you're not familiar with Drive Time, go check them out, either if you need a job or if you need a new car. So definitely go check them out. They are all over the country. But for now, without further ado, I am really excited about tonight's guest. We have been trying to get her on this series for some time now. She is a super cool woman. She is an iron worker. She has had some interesting career path, didn't go straight into being an iron worker, and now she's doing some other cool things with her career, including being a huge advocate for women in the trades as well. And she's got some interesting stories she's going to share along those lines. But I'm excited to meet her. I hope you guys are excited to meet her as well. So without further ado, I am going to bring into the stream tonight's guest. If it'll work, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I have to point out now, anybody who's listening in the audio version of this is not going to see this, but Blue, our guest tonight, is in a pillow fort right now. And I absolutely freaking love it. Right before we went live, I'm like, are you in a pillow fort? She's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, we are going to be best friends.
With the little cactus-shaped nightlight to help provide some good lighting.
Yes. So this is me somewhere between a happy hour hangout sesh, a podcast, and around the campfire ghost stories. It sounds like it looks like, at least. So Blue, tell everybody, fine folks at home, who you are, what you do, where you hail from, and then we'll dig into it.
Hi, I'm Blue Coble. Like Bogey said, I am a union ironworker by trade. I got my start after I was a graphic designer for almost 10 years. And then the market crashed, and the demand for graphic designers was not great. And I kind of wanted to do something else. I wanted to be outside a little more. I wanted to do stuff with my hands a little more. So a roommate of mine, she used to party with ironworkers, and she was like, oh, they talk about how much fun they have and how much money they make, and they didn't have to pay for their schooling. And I was like, what? Sign me the fuck up. That sounds amazing. So I went and I signed up with the union. Took them a little while to pick me up. But once they finally got me in, I was addicted. Love it. Like, I always knew that if I didn't like it, I could fall back onto my design portfolio. Not a big deal. But I never second guessed that decision to move into construction. Just amazing experiences, meeting amazing people. During that time, when I turned out of my apprenticeship program, I turned out as Apprentice of the Year, which is basically like our valedictorian. And then from there, started traveling. At some point, I became a Dove spokesmodel for their beauty bar. You can look it up, commercials, the Blue Ironworker Dove Beauty Bar, played in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And since then, yeah, just try to do tons of public speaking events. What we do is amazing. I feel like it's one of like the best kept secrets, um, especially growing up. I was not really encouraged to go into construction, more traditional role of like secretary, nurse, blah, blah, blah. I remember when I told my parents that I wanted to join the union, they were like, what? I think at that point, though, they had gotten used to some of my crazy ideas. So they were just like, oh, we don't like it, but we'll do whatever you want, man.
Fair enough.
And then a few years ago, I was on a project and I got approached with the idea of being a quality coordinator and sort of learn the ropes from there on the project. And eventually became a quality manager, which is what I am now for a general contractor.
Awesome.
I was able to finish my degree. I actually have a degree in OSH, occupational safety and hazard, and or in health. And yeah, I just love that I'm able to exercise all these opportunities and all these doors open, like all these things that we didn't think of. Like,
Yeah.
you talk about quality managers and people are like, what do you do? Like, what? That's a great question. I have no idea. Let me figure it out.
Right. I mean, that's definitely not a career that like you hear about in grade school or high school. Is
Yeah.
what that is. Yeah, absolutely. So amazing life journey and life story. We've got to dig into some of this though. We've got to dissect some of this because it sounds like an incredible journey. Of course, there's lots of ins and outs to that. And I'm sure it was not a super smooth road every step of the way. So
No, it
I've
never
got to
is.
I gotta go back in time here. First of all, how did you wind up a graphic designer? What brought you to that point? Like what was the appeal of graphic design and how did you end up there?
So growing up, I always did art. I always wanted to be an artist.
Okay.
Design was just sort of like the new technology version of doing art and getting paid for it.
Okay.
I made my break into the industry pretty young, early 20s as like a photo editor. So all the Photoshop tricks, like that's what I did a lot of that. And then just slowly kind of worked up to being able to do like promotional materials and things like that.
Yeah.
And then just started working through other companies. And then at some point, had the opportunity to start my own business. So I worked from home and focused on branding. That was my big specialty. I did a lot of like the coding for websites, stuff like that. Just kind of an all over like my motto through life has always been has been something along the lines of like, if you don't know somebody who does it, I don't want anybody to say no to me, or I don't want to ever be passed over for an opportunity because I don't know how to do something. So anytime someone asked me, hey, do you do this? I was like, I do now. Let's do it. Jesus made Google for a reason. I can do this. This is awesome. Yeah. And I just did that. And then, like I said, the economy crashed and everybody's brothers, sisters, cousins, uncle knew how to do graphic design for their websites. And
right.
I was like, fuck this.
Interesting.
Like I was getting passed over for projects because people were getting it for free or for cheaper. And I was like, all right.
Because everybody's like, oh yeah, my brother's neighbor's sister's friend does websites. And you're like, yeah, but are they actually any good?
Yeah.
It changed.
Call me when
sure.
it fixed.
Right. Right. Exactly. Gotta love it. So had you ever been exposed to like the construction trades and industrial trades before that point? Like had you had any exposure to that previously, or was this like purely kismet? Like I have a friend who knows some guys and they said it's fun. Like you said, guys at the bar.
Mostly that. My father is blue collar. He's currently in the communication, the CWA.
Okay.
The Communication Workers of America Union.
Okay.
And he's been there for quite a while. Before that, he worked for a company called Bear.
Okay.
Have you seen the old metal signs of like the little yellow bear? And he's got like his hand out. He's like, and he's kind of bent over. It's like an old, they used to make automotive diagnostic equipment.
Oh,
so my dad used to fix that. And he went to AAI, Arizona Automotive Institute,
Okay.
when I was very, very young. So
Interesting.
kind of had like that dusting kind of, in my atmosphere.
Yeah.
But never had, like, when I joined, I did not know my asshole from my elbow. I could not tell you what drill, I knew what a drill was, but I didn't know what a hammer drill was. I didn't know the difference. I couldn't tell you what a spud wrench was or what the difference was or the different sizes.
Wait,
I
a
knew how to
what?
read a tape.
Did you say a
Spud
spud
wrench?
wrench? I don't
Yep,
know what a
spud
spud
wrench.
wrench is. What's a spud wrench?
So if you see the wrenches where it's got the wrench head, the regular wrench head, and then the handle part actually tapers to a point, that's a spud wrench.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's tapered to a point so that way you can get the wrench into the holes on the beams to align them to get the bolts in.
Oh, that's clever. I
Yeah,
never
and
heard
there's
about
nobody can really definitively say where spud wrench came from. A lot of people say like it's because they used to cook the potatoes over the fire. Or, I've also heard that shanks were called spuds if they were very small. So like if you handmade shanks, and so like when the old Irish workers would carry them, they had like these little shanks, and so it was kind of like a joke, like, oh, your wrench is like a spud. So I don't know. Lots of
Fascinating. Learn something new every day. All right. Very cool. So you knew nothing, essentially.
Nothing.
And clearly I don't either. We all know
No
different
judgment.
things. So dad was blue collar, dad worked in and around these industries. Was it ever were you ever exposed to that as a potential, or was it like, I'm curious because I hear a lot of like some mechanics and tradespeople and other industrial trades are like, hell no, I don't ever want my kids doing this, and others are like, I would love for my kids to do this. Where was your dad on the spectrum?
I think my dad was just kind of, I don't know, I would say he was supportive, but maybe not over the moon about it. I know my mom was very vocal about being unhappy about it. My mom was a little more traditional. Like, I was raised Roman Catholic. I remember getting phone calls when I first started in as a designer. My mom would call me like, why aren't you a secretary? You could go work. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
really? No, I want to work where I want to work.
Interesting. So even when you were doing graphic design, she wasn't happy with what you were doing.
Yeah, she was, the company that I worked for was more adult related, so I think that helped that decision.
There is another layer to this.
Yeah, that's how the truth comes out. See, there's the horror story part of our campfire.
Right, exactly. That's amazing. Okay, so mom was not supportive of that. She was also not supportive of going into the Ironworkers Union, huh?
Yeah, she didn't want me to get hurt. I know that. Like, it was more out of a caring position.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't hold it against her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, ironworkers have always been one of the top 10 most dangerous jobs. And so I'm sure that was just like a big driver in her unhappiness. But once I got in and worked a while, and like she saw how happy I was, and she was fine.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm glad they've come around. So you decide that this is a free education through the union, right? And that, I think, is just such a cool thing that, like, I think a lot of people don't know about. Like, we have such a trade shortage, and if more people knew that you could get all of this training for free and learn on the job, and it's as close to an apprenticeship program as we have in the United States, because we don't really have much formally in most of the trades, but the fact that they have that is phenomenal. And if more people knew, we wouldn't have a trade issue. But
yeah, and there's a lot of organizations too where, like, mine is, we have a partnership with the local colleges, so we get college credits while we're going through the apprenticeship program.
wow.
And like all of that is paid for. Your books, everything is paid for by the union. And the way that we do it is we go to school for 1 week every 3 months. And during that week, we get unemployment. So we still have some semblance of a paycheck coming in.
Oh, wow.
You go to school all week, and then you go back to work and you apply what you learn.
Interesting.
So it's not an all the time thing, which is cool.
Well, and I think that's similar. I think that's how like Canada and Australia and the UK do it as well. They kind of have like you're kind of going to school and you're getting training and you're working on the job kind of all at the same time, which makes sense because that's
Yeah.
you're getting all the different types of learning covered. But we don't, other than the union, we don't get any of that.
Mm-mm. No, yeah,
Interesting.
which makes more sense because like if you're looking at pictures of tools, you go out to the field.
Yeah.
Well, all the tools are going to be different. You know, Milwaukee makes a different style. DeWalt makes a different style. How are you going to know that you're grabbing the right thing, that it looks,
Yeah.
you know, so it makes
Yeah.
more sense to do it while you're kind of integrated into your work while you're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but I'm going to push on this for a second because
Do it.
so you're getting out of graphic design, you're frustrated with the way that whole industry is going, and I totally understand that frustration. You've got a friend who knows some iron workers, and ironworking has some free education through the union. Okay, so there's lots of other ways that you could have like other directions you could have gone, right? Like there's 9 million
Probably.
other jobs, there's 9 million other things. Like why Ironworkers Union specifically, and what made your ears perk up about it? Was it strictly the money and the free training and the potential for making money, or like did you interview these guys? Were you like trying to find out information on what the work was like you just
Uh, yeah,
went for it?
I'm a little impulsive.
Okay.
In hindsight, I don't know why I didn't apply for other unions or seek out other stuff. Like I basically went down, asked a couple of questions, said, "Hey, that sounds rad," signed the list, and then at some point I did start looking for like other graphic design jobs, and I did get one. Um, and it was an amazing, amazing job working for a great company at the time that's no longer around. But yeah, I don't like in hindsight, I don't know. I just kind of thought about some other things and was just like, no, that just sounds really good. I remember when the Hoover Dam was built, and I remember, or not the, I mean, not the actual Hoover Dam. I'm not that old. The new
I
freeway
appreciate you
system
clarifying.
over it. This fireside light is just very flattering to my age. Yeah, it's great. No, when they did the new highway bridge over Hoover Dam,
Yeah.
I remember when they were building that, and I remember reading articles about how the Arizona Union and the Nevada unions kind of came together and they met in the middle. So like half is built by Arizona, half is built by Nevada. And I remember how cool the pictures looked, and just I, you know, like to me, it looked like you just got paid to climb around on monkey bars all day and like give me a snack and a fruit pouch and let me do that. That sounds like a heaven. Like,
I love it. That's awesome. Yay for impulsivity. That's fantastic. Um, so, all right. So, super impulsive decision. You decide, yes, I'm going to give this a try. You march down to the union
yeah.
and go to sign up. Tell me what that experience was like. And
Um, so I want to start off by saying, like, you know, common boilerplate. I love my union. I love my union brothers and sisters. Overall, A plus. Um, at the
okay,
time,
good
so
disclaimer.
I, so I went down to sign up. Um, totally no problem. Everything was good. They, you know, I filled out the paperwork and they said, you know, they explained the process to me kind of, and I was so excited. I didn't hear everything they said correctly. I totally take blame for that. So like when you go to sign up, they give you a list of all of the contractors that are under our union contract, meaning they do work with the union. Um, so I took the list and I thought I was supposed to call them and ask them to sponsor me in. So every Friday, I went down the list and I called every company. Hey, are you guys sponsoring? Hey, are you guys sponsoring? Are you guys looking for apprentices? And the first couple of months, it was a lot of no thank yous. After that, they just stopped answering my calls. And in
Okay.
fact, Chef Steele, some of the people in the Chef Steele office started calling me Girl Friday because I called every Friday.
Oh my gosh.
They'd be like, Girl Friday's
Okay.
on the, it's Girl Friday calling. It's fine. Just ignore it. Um, eventually, one of the rebar companies. So in Arizona, we have the union ironworkers. We have what's called like a full book. So the actual full name of the ironworkers is the International Association of Bridge, Reinforcing, Ornamental, Architectural, and Structural Ironworkers.
That's a mouthful.
So yeah, so that's why we just say ironworkers.
That was a decision.
So when we get our Journeyman book, if you have a full book, that means that you are skilled in bridge, ornamental, reinforcing, structural, and architectural. And in Arizona, we have the full book. So I had to be skilled and had to have hours in all of those skill sets before I turned out, or that's what we call graduating the apprenticeship program, turning out.
Okay.
So if I say turn out, that's just I just graduated.
Okay, that's good. That's not what I would have expected, and so I'm learning lots here. Turning out. Yeah. That sounds like that like makes me think of like, I don't know, like getting rid of, like you like turn out your like kid when they graduate high school and you're like, you don't get to live here anymore, you have to have your own job, I guess.
I thought it was always something like the Southern debutante balls. Like I thought that was referred to as like turning them out. So that's what I thought
that was coming out, which is a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other, yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? Okay, so turning out is the lingo or the terminology for graduating from the apprenticeship program.
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, you have to have all of this different stuff.
All of these skills. So you have to have hours in all of them to prove, and then you take the test for your journeyman, so that way you're a actual certified journeyman. Okay. So a rebar company called and said, "Hey, we'd like to call you in for an interview," which, knowing now, this is really unusual. But at the time, I was like, whatever, man. They're calling me for an interview. Cool. They might have an opening. Fuck yeah. So I go down, have the interview. Everything's great. I thought the interview went really well. And it finishes up and we stand up, we shake hands. And I go to leave the office. And he goes, "Hey, you don't want this." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You don't want this." And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I'm on top of being impulsive, I'm also just a little naive." I was like, "Yeah, I do. What are you talking about? Like, that's why I'm here. That's why I did the interview." And he goes, "No, just so you know." And I was like, I have no idea what that means. But I was like, great. Well, that now is like a red flag that I didn't get it. And sure enough, they didn't call. So I was like, well, fuck. And so I let that go. And then I think it was like 10 or 11 months after I had signed the list to join the apprenticeship, the Intel project in Chandler, Arizona, kicked off. Huge project. I don't remember the exact size, but it was, millions upon millions of dollars for this project. They were pulling anybody and everybody to have workers on the job. And that was when I got sponsored in by Chef Steele to be an apprentice. And that's how I got in. Okay. So that was my very first job, was Intel. And if that's, that is definitely a 0 to 100 type situation, because it is a huge, it's a huge job site. So you're learning all of the ins and outs and like job site etiquette and like where to park. And on top of it, there's also like a ton of industrial stuff going on. So you have to be aware of like where the clean rooms are and where the security checkpoints are. And you can go over here, but not over here, and blah, blah, blah. Amazing learning experience for the trade, 100%. I'm so glad that was my first job, because on top of it, Hoffman was the general contractor for that job. And they have very high standards when it comes to safety. And so that was just an amazing job to learn about like the safety standards and what it means. And just getting exposed to all of that stuff. Because on top of not knowing tools, I also don't really know how to take care of myself if I'm new on the project.
Sure. Like, yeah, it was day one. You were brand new.
Yeah. Somebody hands you a harness and you're like, what the fuck is this for? Like, am I supposed to wear this as a hat? I don't know what's going on here. So it really good. I'm really thankful that being on a large project like that was my first project. But it also then gave me a taste for all the safety ins and outs. Like, yes, safety is tying off, but there's a lot of complications, or there's basically a lot of science that has gone into why we do the things we do and why things are shaped the way they're shaped, all in the intent to protect us. And so I got really obsessed with industrial hygiene, which is the science behind safety. Like I
Okay.
say that, and a lot of people always say, like, "Oh, yeah, giant toothbrushes," or like, "Oh, you're cleaning equipment, like big giant equipment." Oh, okay, that sounds terrible. But industrial hygiene is actually the science behind safety, or why we create the safety standards that we do. It's the science that supports all that. And I'm a
Interesting.
huge science geek, so I was totally in love.
That's fascinating and awesome. And I have so many questions.
I know. I feel like this whole thing, I'm just like info barfing all over.
No, this is fantastic. This is what we want. There's a lot of great content in here. If folks are just tuning in, Blue has had a fascinating journey and career as an iron worker, and I am learning a ton. I hope you guys are too. Take notes if this is something that you're interested in doing. I have to rewind to so you said Girl Friday when you were calling all of these employers every Friday. For 11 months you're doing this, or you
Yeah,
eventually gave up on calling every Friday, but it was 11 months before you actually got your apprenticeship. Um, what were you supposed to have done if you said you didn't listen to the instructions properly and you weren't supposed to be calling them to get like what were you supposed to have done? How is this
just wait on
supposed
the
to have
list.
worked?
You
You
just
just
wait on the
wait.
list.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you
so
literally you
it's
sign up and then you wait.
yep. Yeah, so so they have a list, and they have for we
Interesting.
also have the out of work list. So when we get laid off from a job, or a job has ended or whatever, we go down to the hall and we sign an out of work list. And essentially what they do is they just somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need an iron worker, I need a journeyman, I need a welder." And they just go down the list, and whoever's next on the list, you get called for that project. And so
Interesting.
it's the same
Okay.
thing taking in apprentices and stuff like that. You sign a list, and what they're supposed to
And
do
wait.
is grab your name, take yeah. So
Interesting. Okay. So you finally get called. It's interesting to me that we hear about the trade deficit so much, and yet it took 11 months for you to get called. Do you know what that's about?
at the time, uh, so so if you're not watching visually, I am built like a brick shit house. I'm a little tall. I love to eat. I don't give a fuck. Uh, so and so respectively, I came in. They saw a girl who came from a white collar job. So I came in, like the nice collared shirts, thinking that I was trying to be professional.
Mhm.
Um, who who's overweight, so potentially not able to perform some of the physical duties that are involved.
Hmm.
And they kind of figured that I just wouldn't make it.
Interesting.
So it was a number of factors that they took in. And while I still give a lot of my brothers who had those influences at the time, I give them shit about it now. And they are definitely much better. But at the time, it was definitely like the fat girl who showed up.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was definitely a stigma, but
Yeah.
I'm able to kind of throw that back and
Yeah.
prove to them that like you can't judge people like that. Like you pass that judgment on me, and if you had not finally picked me up, if you had picked me up a year sooner, how much farther along would we be?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's amazing. I appreciate that you're now like switching the script and kind of going in and encouraging that change, and you're able to call those very people out on their decision back then. That's awesome. But
Yeah, and they
nonetheless,
are
super
genuinely better.
frustrating.
Like I think right now in our union, I think we have something like 15 women, and we only really have something like 250 members in Arizona because we don't have a lot of
Okay.
high structures. Um, so yeah, for out of that number, that percentage of women is astounding. It
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Yeah, that's significant. That's really awesome to hear. I love
Yeah.
it. Fascinating. Okay. So yay for the big Intel project being so
Yeah.
massive that they needed to just grab anybody and everybody and finally let you get your foot in the door.
Yes. Looks, I am a corpse that can fire wash. I'm in. Do it.
And this was back in what year was this? This was I think 2011 you said?
Yeah. 2011.
Okay. So yeah, things have changed I feel like quite a bit since then.
I
Have
yeah,
you
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it a lot. Obviously, safety standards are always being enforced more, and I know a lot of people want to kick and scream about a lot of those things. Like you see the new safety helmets on job sites a lot. There are a lot of big companies that are pushing for that because um, a lot of the tests have proven that it is safer. It does protect your cranium should you get hit with something or should you fall off something. It is a better piece of safety. It's better PPE overall. But you see, even just those little changes, and then the changes of people's opinions. Like I remember being on job sites, and I was the only woman, and that included the carpenters, the electricians. Like if they were out on the job, none of them were women, and it was always that really awkward. Um, like I remember one job I went to, they had a meeting about me before I showed up on the job,
Ooh,
which
those are the
obviously now
best.
huge red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but they had a meeting about me before I even showed up on the job. They said, "Hey, everybody, there's going to be a woman joining us. So mind your P's and Q's, blah, 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 blah." And then, of course, the first day I showed up and I jumped off the job bus and I was like, "What's up, motherfuckers?" And they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. She's fine." But then I found out about the meeting and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like, what? Like, okay, I turned out this way, great, but maybe what if I didn't want to swear? That still doesn't mean I'm not going to bust my ass building something. Like, why the fuck
Right.
would you do that to someone? Jeez."
They had the exact same meeting at my first dealership before I started. And I was told about it later because at first, like, they were so weird around me. For like the first week, I was the first female tech they'd ever had. And like everybody was like super polite and minded their P's and Q's and like nobody uttered a curse word and like everything. I was
Oh,
like,
jeez.
this is weird.
You're like in
And
the Twilight Zone.
it was so bizarre. And then they finally explained to me that this had happened. And I was like, fuck that shit. That's fucking stupid. But it's interesting because it's that well-intentioned stuff that like, they think they're doing the right thing, but at the same time, it like stigmatizes the woman even more. It's like, okay, all right, everybody, there's a girl coming. Let's
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, "You put all this pressure on me and I haven't even showed up yet. Like, give me a chance to
yeah.
fuck up. Like, if I'm going to fuck up, let me do it on my own. I don't need all this extra pressure." Holy
Ex-
smokes.
Exactly, exactly. Oh my God, I love it. So given that, like what was showing up your first day at this Intel thing like? I mean, you know nothing.
Oh,
You had been waiting 11 months to get into this, and it's a huge project, and you're just kind of like, okay, here you
yep.
go.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely remember it. And so you show up and like literally don't know anything. My boots are all nice and clean. My lunch bucket's nice and clean. There's no stickers on my hard hat. The apprenticeship gave us our hard hats, and our hard hats were like these bright white hard hats. Um, Half of the tools in my tool belt weren't even right because I didn't know how to
No.
translate the tool list. I remember walking up, and one of my buddies, Taiwan, he goes, "Oh shit, it's a newbie," and like immediately started pulling all of the tools out of my tool belt and making fun of every single one of them.
Okay.
And then like, and everybody was like, "Oh, ha," and I was like, and I was expecting it. Like, I
Sure.
know, like I get the camaraderie. Like, I swear a lot. This isn't new. I didn't
Right.
earn all of my swear words through construction, so not a big deal. I was like, "Okay, okay, give me the raz, whatever." But yeah, and there's, and the little things throughout, like all the like, it's not hazing, but the things where like you go ask somebody to bring you a bumper gun. Bumper guns don't exist.
Right.
Go get me the
Okay.
sky hook. Doesn't exist. There's a
See, I
thing.
think that's hazing. I think that's totally hazing, and I think it's totally not cool, but we can come back to that.
No, that's fair. Yeah, because it can be embarrassing and it can bring down the morale, and
Yeah,
definitely if you do it consistently, like that's bullshit. You shouldn't pick on someone all the time. They're already
right.
nervous. Anyway, yeah, yeah. Like you said, get back to it.
Yeah.
Um, There's one thing where you take welding rod and you bend it over your neck. Like all the guys will like, oh, the apprentice over there, he just bent 6 welding rods over his neck. Can you do more? The guys that put $20, it says you can't do more than him, blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
jeez.
And then you grab the handful and you bend it over their neck. And I didn't fall for that one, which was really funny. Because I had so many guys coming up that day. Like I was the chosen one that day that they were going to try it on. And
Of course.
they're like, oh, that guy over there, he did 10 rod. Nobody thinks you can do more than 10 rod. And I was like, okay, well, I don't give a shit. So tell him, no, they put $20 on you that you could do. And I was like, well, you just lost fucking money because I'm not doing it. Like, I'm busy. I got shit to do. Why are you coming over here? I'm not going to fuck up our consumables. That's wasted money. And they were like, fuck. Never mind. She's not doing it. She's not doing it. It's like, you asses, come on. And one guy was like, she doesn't have any ego. Let her go.
She doesn't have any ego. Let her go. That's amazing. Interesting. I mean, that's an effective approach. I dig it. That's interesting. I do totally think that like all of that stuff is hazing. I mean, you obviously are a strong personality and you were having none of it and it wasn't going to phase you. But I just, I think about what that must have felt like walking in that first day. And if you were anybody else, right? Like if you had an ounce less confidence and an ounce less of that ballsy, like I'm gonna do what I want, regardless of what anybody thinks, which like clearly you have, because you told your parents that you were gonna do what you wanted, no matter what. You told your friends and family you were gonna do what you wanted. So like obviously that's just who you are. But if you didn't have that, this is why we lose people from the industries, because they like show up all excited with their nice clean lunchbox and their nice clean hard hat and they're all eager to learn, and then we beat the joy out of them.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I think that because I came in a little bit older than some of the other apprentices, like I said, I basically had an entire career before I came in. So I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I started. So at that point, I was a little more like, I had a little more life. I had a little bit, like I knew a little bit more to be like, yeah, that's not right. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not going to overperform or do this dumb task because I think you're going to reward me. I know you're not. I know it's a dumb task, so I'm not going to do it. And I did see a lot of like the younger guys that I had kind of started with fall out. Like, I believe they said that when I got in as an apprentice, I think they said Chef Steele had brought in 120 apprentices overall at the time for the Intel project. And when I turned out, there were only 9 of us.
Wow.
And it's because we also don't have a lot of work in Arizona. Like I said, we don't have a lot of really tall buildings, and a lot of people can't do rebar. I think rebar is the most physically grueling work. Like, I've done concrete work. Is it totally difficult and grueling? Yes, absolutely. Everybody just, every trade deserves the respect that it is difficult work. But rebar is fucking brutal. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So if you're not doing rebar and if we don't have structural, we don't have work for you. So I understand that like not having work, we do have a lot of people leave the program. But like you said, it was also a lot of that, like the hazing or the bad attitudes or, people not wanting to communicate or understand situations. And yeah, I think there's a lot of it. You could see where the industry needs a little bit more of that better leadership. And we are seeing it more and more. Like, for example, the Ironworkers Union, we now have a program called Be That One Guy. And it's essentially an anti-bullying program. Vicki O'Leary, who is our diversity director for the International Union of Ironworkers, she put together the program. It's phenomenal. She goes around and she does the training, and it basically runs through like, when you were in this situation, how did you feel? Like, when it's important for women to have restrooms, not only, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. You're good.
Oh, I was like, no, not my computer again.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sorry. So she goes around, she does training and like puts you in situations. one of the reasons why it's important for women to have restrooms, or why it's been problematic, is that there's always one restroom on the job site. It's always a mile away from where we work. So we're being judged for the amount of time that we have to take to walk to the porta john, and then we're in there, and it's disgusting. Blah blah blah. We have situations where once a month we're a biohazard, so we need a clean space. We need that for us to help protect ourselves. And then, you walk the mile back, and then you got a foreman who's yelling at you, like, why are you fucking not for 15 minutes? You're taking a shit on company time. Blah, blah. Like, no, dude. Like, that's just, it's not appropriate. And again, it's one of the reasons we end up losing. Like, not that reason, but it's one of the,
well, it's one of the layers, right?
Yeah,
because
death
there's
by a thousand
layer.
paper cuts.
Yes, exactly. There's layer upon layer upon layer about why we're losing people. That number that you gave is staggering. The number of apprentices and the tiny number that stayed, 9, you said?
Yeah, it was 8 or 9 of us. I don't remember exactly how many of us turned out, but it was
Unbelievable.
under 10.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like there's all these pieces to it. There's the fact that a lot of tradespeople often don't want their kids going into these fields. There's the safety piece of it. Parents don't necessarily want their kids to be in an unsafe environment. So the work that you're doing now to really focus on safety is a huge piece, because it's that reputation thing. If you can't get the family and the friends and the parents and the influencers behind the idea of young people going into these fields from the safety perspective, and then add the bullying perspective and the hazing and the just the energy that happens in the trades a lot, it is like, I always equate a lot of the environments that I've worked in to like a slumber party where the kids were allowed to eat cake after midnight and totally unsupervised, right? Where like everybody's just like willy-nilly doing whatever the heck they want, and there's like nobody telling them there's consequences. And like that's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and
for
it's like, this
so
is fun for a
long.
while, but
Right. Like maybe a professional environment might benefit everybody, and like, because dudes don't like it either, right? Like dudes
yeah.
don't like the hazing, they don't like being treated poorly, and like it's it's not just the women, it's just when you're a woman, it's just one more layer of BS that you have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I really like the Be That One Guy program, because it starts off focusing on some of like the like very blatant situations that women have been in, or some of the conversations that we get thrown into that are just really inappropriate, but may not seem inappropriate, and how to handle it. But it's about being that one guy that'll stand up for you no matter who you are or whatever it is, but to be that one person that will stand up in a situation. Sometimes you see stuff that goes on. And one of the catalysts to this program was a lady named Udi Hicks was murdered on a job site by a laborer. She was a union carpenter, and she was murdered by a non-union laborer. And
Oh wow.
witnesses had said that guy had been harassing her on the job many, many days leading up to the incident. And then when the incident happened, everybody saw that they were yelling at each other, and no one stepped in. No one felt it was appropriate, or, like nobody really wants to, and I get there are people that, fight or flight. Sometimes people can't handle those situations. Sometimes people just don't know what to say. And Be That One Guy helps to have those conversations, and to give people the tools to have those conversations, to be the one guy that stands up and walks in and, becomes a divider and helps separate the situation. So I think it's really important for everybody, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because see a lot of that stuff even online, where, you see Karens out in the wild, and like, how do you handle that situation without really escalating it? And I think so. Yeah, it's a really good program.
That's fantastic to hear that is happening, that program is happening. What a horrifying situation, and yet if good comes out of it, that was like the turning point for people to say, holy crap, we need to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic to hear. But oh my gosh, yeah, it is. As somebody in the comments just said, Brooke, saying the bystander effect is very real, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
How often do we see that on the internet, where it's like, okay, so something awful is happening, and your response is to pull out your phone and record it? Like, hello. Right? And like, it's when it's an extreme situation, somebody getting hurt, but it's also the little situations, and it's if everybody's joking about something horribly inappropriate or taunting or teasing, or, somebody's grabbing somebody's ass or whatever. And if you don't agree with it, but you don't say anything about it to stop it, then you were just as guilty of it, in my opinion. Like, you were
Yeah.
just as guilty because you let it happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey.
I'm seeing a lot of more stuff like that kind of come around. There's other general contractors who have similar programs.
Yeah.
So I like that our industry is recognizing it.
Yeah.
Recognizing that our mental health is obviously heavily influenced by a lot of these situations, and really taking a stand against it to take care of our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if we want to fill the trades gap, we need to be a place that people want to work, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we want more people, we have to be attractive to people.
Yeah. Oh, we have to be a little nicer. Oh, darn.
Oh, geez, what a concept. Oh my goodness. Are you seeing a lot of resistance to those programs, or are people enthusiastic about them in your industry?
I see a lot of excitement. I see more excitement than not.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, you always get the one person who, absolutely resistant to change. Oh, this is
Right.
how we've always done it.
Right.
I don't want to do this, and I recognize it takes a little bit extra work when you're learning and changing and improving upon situations. And I know that a lot of people sometimes just don't want to expend that energy. But much like they would say to us in other situations, too fucking bad. Pull up your pants, let's fucking go.
Quit being a baby. Right. Amazing. I love it. That's really awesome to hear. I think we are seeing more and more of that throughout different industries, but that's an impressive program to hear. We don't have anything like that in the automotive world that I'm aware of. So that's really cool to hear. I dig
But
it.
you can always reach out to the International Union Ironworkers, and Vicky will do training for other trades and other associations and
Oh,
companies. So
well, that's cool. It
yeah, so
sounds
if
like
you're
we
working
need
for
to
a
get,
company and you would
yeah,
like some some documentation out, maybe get started, or even talk to Vicky
yeah.
O'Leary, highly recommend Googling her and reaching
I
out.
definitely,
Never hurts to
yeah.
ask.
That's awesome. I definitely will, and I will make sure that her name and resource for getting in touch with her, getting a hold of her, will be in the description below on this once it goes live, or once
Nice.
it's not live anymore,
But,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's the reruns. Yes. But and it sounds like she's somebody that I should have on the podcast, maybe.
Oh,
So
she's
maybe
amazing. Yeah,
you can make that
she's super
connection.
awesome.
That would be really awesome. So okay, so you get turned out from your apprenticeship. We are like already 3/4 of the way through this hour. I don't know how that happened. There's so much to talk about still.
I
When
told
we're
you we're
only
gonna
at
have
the
a lot of
start.
talking.
I know, we're only at the start of your journey. My goodness. Okay, so you get turned out from your apprenticeship. You are in love. Was there a point at which you like fell in love with this and were like, yes, this is what I want to do forever and ever now? Or like,
Um, I don't think there was like a definitive moment. There was definitely things that I just really I don't know, I just kind of enjoyed in the moment. Like, and there were definitely days where I came home and just like sobbed my face off. Or like there are
mm,
definitely days where I was like sobbing under my welding hood. Like we all have those moments.
yeah.
Um, but I don't there was never really a moment where I was like, oh, this is it. I just kind of like the fact that I just kept waking up and I kept going was just like enough where I was like, yeah, this is fucking rad. I'm just gonna keep doing this.
What got you through those days when you were sobbing in your helmet, or sobbing when you got home and maybe in a pillow fort for a different reason than you are now?
Uh, I think like I mentioned kind of earlier, just being a little bit older and knowing that those days are just it's just a day, or sometimes it's a week, so it's just a week. Sometimes when you're on shitty jobs, it's just that job. That job will be
Mhm.
over. Like, there's always opportunities to have some fun, to have learning opportunities. I remember there was one job that I was on. It was it was like the end of the job. We were just kind of doing basically like little punch steel type stuff, some add-ons that they had added into the project at the very end. Things like bullards and stuff in a parking garage. And the general foreman, I think, was just a total ass. Everybody was miserable. Most of the guys were transferring or traveling after that job was after the project was finished. They were going to travel to another project, so they were all basically mentally checked out. I remember like the morale was just really down. But there was like a couple of guys that I got to work with that, you know, we were friends. So like those moments where we were teamed up to do a project, it was cool. And just finding maybe those little moments, or just trying to remind myself that like, that was the only job really that I'd worked on bollards. So I was like, okay, cool. I get to learn how to do this, or
finding the positive.
I'm really easily amused. So I think
that's a good thing.
Yeah, but I was still having a good time. My bills were paid, which always helps. I mean, money can't buy happiness, but goddamn, man, benefits sure do make me smile.
Yep. Money isn't everything, but not having money is everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was a big thing. It was like, because I was making more money than I did as a designer. It was the most money I had made. And just always learning, always participating, always being a part of it. As an apprentice, you're also not allowed to quit jobs. And that helps too, because when I had found out very, very early on that the Apprentice of the Year thing was a thing, like that we were told that if you were Apprentice of the Year, you didn't have to take your Journeyman test. Basically all the grades from all your classes, because you had to have straight A's, you had to have all your certifications, all that stuff. So you didn't have to take the Journeyman test. I was like, what? Basically, I just have to like get A's in all my classes, do all this stuff, and then I like get out of doing some work. Yes, that's amazing. Like that's a really great bargain for me.
So then it was you were on a mission to get the Apprentice of the Year.
Yeah. So I didn't want to do anything wrong to take that opportunity away. So I was like, oh, great. If I'm on a shitty job, you just have to keep working through it. Like, it'll end. I'll go to the next one. In the meantime, I'm racking up my hours. I'm learning.
Yeah. Interesting. I love it. So when did you make, I don't know which direction to go in first. When did you make the transition to being your current position or the Dove campaign? Because I really want to know about how that was, and if it was so cool. Like I want to know all the things. So I'll let you pick. Which do you want to talk about?
I love talking about the Dove story because it was so unusual. So we can do that. And then if we run out of time, then I can come back and I can talk about quality and that, because that's a whole another barrel.
That is a whole other barrel. I know. All right.
But
let's talk about
so the Dove thing, the way that came about is Dove had posted on several social media platforms like, hey, are you a tradeswoman? And do you use the beauty bar? And like, that was it. Like,
they were looking
if you do
for
reach out, like that was it.
Specifically. They were
it was very specific. Are you a tradeswoman and do you use the Dove beauty bar? And I literally messaged them thinking it was a joke. I messaged them and was just like, hey, what's up? Like that was it. That was my entire and they wrote back and you know, like eventually, you know, told them, you know, like I'm an iron worker. Yeah, I use the beauty bar, you know, blah, blah, blah. Then they kind of disappeared for a while. And then a couple of months later, they came back and asked a bunch more questions and filled out some paperwork, did like more of a written sort of interview. And then they disappeared for a few months. And then they came back a few months later and like more questions and then a phone call. And like they would disappear for a couple of months and then they would come back and it would be like the next step. Okay. And then at one point, they had called me and said, hey, we want to come out and we want to do some video shots of you. And I was like, okay, this is serious. All right. And I was like, all right, well, and at the time I was working in Reno. So I was like, hey, I'm in Reno. I'm on a project. So like my husband and I are living out of a hotel basically, because that's what we're doing for work. So, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. We'll fly out. So they had somebody fly out and they did like an interview and they had me try on some different outfits or whatever. And then they disappeared for a few months. And then they called me again and they were like, okay, we're ready to film. And I was like, okay, I'm in Denver now. So if you want to fly out here, that'd be great. And they were like, yep, we're going to start filming on this day. See you then. And And I was like, oh
Oh,
shit.
funny. Oh, wow.
So, and it was cool because I mean, obviously they were in contact with me leading up to the filming because they were like, hey, this is the idea that we're going with. Like the fact that you dress like a pinup girl and you go to car shows and stuff, we're kind of going to use that too. So have some ideas for what you want to look like, and then we're going to need some shots of you actually working. And I was like, well, I had asked all of my projects, and I even went to like my project manager and I was like, hey, do we have any projects right now that they would be willing to have a film crew come on? All
Right.
of the
I was
jobs
going
were
to
like,
ask how that
no,
went. Yeah.
yeah, no, legal reasons, lawyers, no, bad idea, all the red flags. And so I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do. This is a big deal. And eventually their scouting team had found this husband and wife owned like a fabrication shop. And they were so nice. And it was awesome. Like they came in and they just basically just let like the whole film crew come in and take over the shop for a day. And like they had a stunt team because I had to be tied off. And per like acting contracts, you have to have a stunt team for certain things. And so the guy came in, he had like a chunk of magnesium and he's like, we're gonna grind on this because it blows all the sparks. And I was like, fuck yeah, sparks, let's do it. And so and they talked about it was cool because like the way that you tie off for stunts is different from how you tie off in construction. So like we were comparing notes and like comparing our equipment, and it was totally like the scene in Jaws where they're like comparing scars and they're like, oh yeah, well I got this doing this, and I was like, yeah, and then I did this, and yeah, it was awesome. It was such a great experience. Everybody that they had on all of the teams were so phenomenal. Hair and makeup lady was so friggin' nice. Like, but it was really cool. And then the husband and wife that owned their shop, they had 3 daughters, and they said that the daughters, they were all very young, but they said that in general, the daughters really kind of showed no interest in what mommy and daddy do. So they brought them out, and like with the little girls, like seeing the film crew, and I got to meet them, and I shook their hands, and like we talked about what we did, and the little girls were so excited. So I was like, oh, that's such a big thing, because now these little girls are like, they know what mommy and daddy do now, and it's a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. At one point we're in a bathroom and they're doing the face washing part, and they're like, okay, wash your face. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Woo! Wash my face. I was like, man, being an actor is easy. And then they were like, okay, now we're gonna have you wash your face again, but this time slower. And I was like, okay, cool. They're going for action shots, so wash my face a little slower. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna do it again, but this time wash your face like you have somewhere to go. And I was like, you guys realize I'm just an iron worker, right? Like, I don't know what the fuck that means, but I'm gonna try really hard for you. So I washed my face like I had somewhere to go. And then like this went on a couple more times. Wash your face like this, wash your face like this. And then at one point, one of the guys was like, her face is turning red, so we should probably stop. And they were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we got plenty of material. We're good. Let's on to the next scene or whatever.
That's fantastic.
And there was like one point where they had me like twirling in front of a mirror, and I was like, just so you guys know, I'm not a twirling girl, so this is a little weird. Like, yeah, once or twice, yes. Doesn't a little weird, but it was really good. Everybody was super encouraging. The team was so nice, but it was very surreal. Like, it does not feel real at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing experience, and it's what a cool opportunity. And I love, like, you don't often see tradeswomen get represented in these things. So it's just really freaking cool that they were intentionally looking for a tradeswoman, and that you got to be that woman representing like us baddies out here, like doing it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, this is such a big fucking deal. And they actually had 2 tradeswomen. So they had me, the ironworker, and then they also had a bricklayer that was a part of that campaign too. And her commercial, she's adorable because she talks about how like the Dove Beauty Bar gives her that sparkle. And I'm like, oh, that's such a good line. That's so good. But she seems super nice. I love that. And then, but yeah, like at the time, I think the most we might have seen is like, I remember there was like a Carhartt Mother's Day commercial.
Hmm.
That commercial such a badass commercial because it has all the women and like dressed out all in Carhartts and they're walking down air like an airport runway or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so rad. But other than that, you don't really see us.
Did you get a lot of good feedback from it when it aired? Like, did you hear a lot of positive things or negative things? Like, what did the people on job sites with you say? And you're like, did you ever get recognized? Like, hey, are you in that Dove commercial?
Yeah, so my husband likes to say that I'm the most famous iron worker, which yeah, not true, but I love that my husband is amazingly supportive, but he always gives me shit about it. But what came of it is actually like one of my absolute favorite stories to tell. So I have a friend who lives in New York and they have a little girl. And I think she was maybe 6 or 7 at the time. She was into like the construction equipment. And they, thankfully living in New York, always construction going on.
Right.
And at one point they were out walking around and I think there was like a backhoe or something. And Emery went and was like looking at it and like went to go ask some questions. And this fucking asshole comes out from behind it and goes, "That's not for little girls. You don't need to be looking at. Move along, move along." And my friend told me like how brokenhearted Emery looked after that interaction. And I was like, oh, tell me where you were because I'm going to fly out and kick that guy's ass right fucking now. That's
Yeah.
awful. Like, what a
Yeah.
terrible experience. And then I think it was like a week or two later, Emery's watching I think it was Paw Patrol and whatever. And then my friend hears Emery yelling from the living room, "Blue's in the TV! Blue's in the TV!" And my friend Vicky came out and she was like, "Oh shit!" They saw the commercial, and my friend Vicky was able to say, different Vicky from Vicky O'Leary, by the way. She was able to say, "Look, like, you know who Blue is? You've met her, and look, she does construction. Like, you can do it too. That guy that, said that to you the other day, he was wrong. He was not being very nice. But look, as a girl, you can do it too. Auntie Blue's doing it." So, just like knowing that even those little things you don't really think about, but all those little interactions, those little when people say like, "Oh, like women don't need that boost out, like women don't need to be featured and blah blah blah," or like, yes they do because of these exact situations, because somebody's going to say something stupid and they think they're being funny, but it's affecting someone else because they don't know that that isn't the truth.
Yeah.
So just that alone, I was like, that right there fucking makes the entire process
Everything.
like,
That is
oh
everything.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it. And it's so true. It is so true because there's so many negative experiences that people can have that turn them away from stuff. And then all it takes is the one guy, right? Going back to
Yep.
like earlier, that one guy who stands up for you or is nice to you, or how your friends are what got you through the bad times, like the few guys that were around that were awesome, or that one female that you can see visually doing it to reinforce like, yeah, I can do this. It's okay. Like I can get through. So that's awesome. I love it. Oh my gosh. We have not talked about your safety stuff. We are definitely going to have you on for another episode. Maybe we can find some other safety minded ladies and do like a panel all about safety and why it matters.
That would be
That's an
awesome.
idea. We're going to try to do that. So we are already over our hour. I want to be respectful of people's time. I want to be respectful of your time. So I do want to wrap this up, but I have one final question that I have to ask, and I know, well, I'm not going to blab. I'm just going to ask the question because we don't have time for me to blab. So, final question: if you could go back and talk to the younger you, little baby Blue, what are your words of advice to her?
Yeah, and this is probably not like the super fun fortune cookie kind of answer, but I
That's okay.
wouldn't, because I feel like all of the trials and tribulations that I had to learn and that I did learn affected exactly where I am right now. And I'm pretty fucking stoked with where I'm at right now. Like I got my education later in life. I started construction later in life. And even even though, yes, it would have been nice to get involved in construction maybe earlier on, but I was also really enjoying myself and learned a lot while I was being a graphic designer. Like because of that, I'm also much more IT savvy. I put together a lot of like my own PowerPoints even now because as a quality manager, I do a lot of training. So like all of those little things that I did all apply to another aspect of my life. And all the lessons that I needed to learn, I absolutely needed to learn. That's why they were there. So I wouldn't. Oh, maybe, hey, dumbass, quit spending your money on everything and invest in something. Maybe that would
Love it. I love it.
buy more Microsoft
Fantastic.
early on.
We got some love from Kenneth on IT. Because he's an IT guy. Yep. No, I love it. That's beautiful advice. I think it's so true. Like even the worst of our situations made us who we are today. And even though sometimes it'd be nice to like maybe it would have been nice not have to have had experienced that, but we wouldn't be who we are without them. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you for saying that and bringing that. And we
Yes,
definitely
and
have to have you on again. Go ahead.
before
Sorry.
you dismiss me, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I've had an amazing time. I'm super honored. Like I know I kind of fangirled over you the first time we were really interacting, but I am so honored that I got to be here and spend time with you and everybody else. Like, thank you so much. This is really amazing. And I love that
Absolutely.
you're doing this. This is so good.
Thank you for everything that you've done, that you're doing, that you continue to do. I'm stoked that you're in my backyard and we're in like the same state and we might actually get to hang out in real life. This
Yes.
was this
Yes.
was fantastic. You are a joy. I've had a ton of
Thank
fun.
you.
So absolutely, thank you. And
Yes.
folks at home, I hope you enjoyed meeting Blue as much as I did and enjoyed hearing her journey and her stories and all of her ridiculousness and wonderfulness and her ability to shake it all off and just go after whatever it is she wanted, despite what anybody else said. Great perspective on things. I learned a ton about the whole journeyman and apprenticeship and ironworkers. I hope you guys enjoyed learning all of those things along with me. And I will have a link in the bottom in the description to the woman that she was talking about who does be the one guy, be that guy. I'm saying it wrong, but I will have that information in there because it sounds like a hella cool program. We need more of it in the industry. And we definitely are going to try to get her on here on an episode in the future. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave comments. The more comments, the more interaction, the more ratings we get, the more women and men who get to hear these amazing women's stories. And that is really the purpose behind all of this, very similar to what Blue was sharing with us with, the little girl who is being told that she can't do it and then seeing examples that she can. That's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing those stories. And it's also about exposing more men to the fact that women are out there. Women are capable. Women are doing these careers and doing them well. And the more they are exposed to it, the less likely they are to be mean to a little girl looking at construction equipment, or the more likely they are to be supportive and friendly when a woman does show up on the job site. So help us get the word out. And if you are a tradesperson or tradeswoman, I should say, or if you know any tradeswomen who should be on this series, make sure you send us a message. There is a link in the YouTube page to my email, so you can get a hold of me that way. Final thank you to our partner for this episode, Drive Time. As always, they're a wonderful partner and supporter of women in the trades. And if you're looking for a used car or if you're looking for a job in the automotive industry, definitely go check them out now. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Until next time, be good to yourselves and be good to one another. Bye, guys.